Sensationally silver, because you are.
Welcome, everyone, to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age, people who are going to bring you information, inspiration, and validation. Join us. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, conversations with extraordinary, ordinary persons of age. And my extraordinary person today is Pat Meidell. She's been our guest before. She's a certified financial planner and very good at what she does. So welcome, Pat. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And tell us what you're going to tell us about today, because I know what the topic is. Other people don't yet, but I also know how important it is and how widespread a challenge it is among people who are getting older.
Well, Robin, I'm delighted to be with you today, and I thought a lot about this today. As a financial advisor and financial planner, I run into a lot of situations that involve dementia and Alzheimer's, and the financial devastation that can cause families. But I also know that right now I have, from a personal experience as a spouse of and the caretaker for my husband, who has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and it's made it very up close and personal. And I have learned probably more than I ever knew before, even though I've dealt with situations in families like this for almost 40 years. So one of the things that I wanted to do is kind of clarify, we think, well, I've got Alzheimer's, that's different than dementia. No, it's all dementia, but Alzheimer's is one of the types of dementia. And there are various types that they have. But to diagnose it properly is important. But I think what's so significant to me is that it's the major cause of disability and death worldwide. So you think, well, it's not physical, it's just mental. But the mental controls the physical in many ways. There's over 55 million people worldwide that have dementia, and there's nearly 10 million new cases each year. By 2030, we should have 78 million people involved with dementia. It's a disease that's it's probably the most common type of dementia. And we know that people that are 65 sometimes start saying, oh gosh, I can't remember that person's name, or, oh, I forgot their birthday, and they start thinking, oh, I must get dementia. Well, no. Part of aging is, of course, slowing, or you just think about it. In your head, you've got all these computer files. And when you're looking for something, I think of how much data is in there, and I liken it to go to a file folder and you've got to go looking for it. Sometimes I just say to myself, well, don't think about it and it'll come, and it will. I give myself a minute or so and well, there's the name, there's the situation, and I've got it again. So, but I would say this, I think that being candid, I think my husband was diagnosed with dementia in 2014. They did a brain scan. He was functional. He's very bright. And I think for a long time, he was able to diffuse and not really show how much he did not have working for him. And so I want to caution people to, don't let these smart guys give you a quippy answer. You start looking. And one of the things that was a tip off for me is that my husband started giving me envelopes to put in the mail. And these envelopes would be to various charities. And one day I thought, what is he doing? And so I opened it, and there was a $20 bill. Well, the next couple of days, he would give me more. And finally, I just quit sending them mail. I started looking at what was in there. And if he had money in his wallet, he was giving it and sending it out. And we know that a lot of seniors do that. These people are in need. I've got to do this. So that's one telltale sign. The other thing that I saw is that on his email address, he was always messed up on his emails. He couldn't keep track. And there's a lot of preying upon seniors these days on emails for various causes. And sometimes it's even phone calls that are coming in, and it sounds like it's a grandchild. Hey, I need your help, Grandma. I'm in jail. I'm da 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 da. And so they send money. I've had clients that were on their computer and somebody took over their computer for them and said, "You've got malware in here. Let me take over a computer and clean it up for you." And I saw my husband doing that. I heard this voice and I walked in and the guy was saying, "Well, you need to open up separate credit card and because they're very good at making sure you're protected." And I stepped in just in time to say, "Hold the phone. No, we're not doing this." And then I got rid of his email address. So I had to get rid of the email because he was going to become a victim of elder abuse. And boy, are they clever. They're so smart and so clever that you think it's legit and it's not. And it creates panic. Sometimes you'll see things like there's an Amazon box, but we can't deliver it. It's not from Amazon. It's not Amazon. You have to be very clever to see, where is it coming from because it looks almost like, but it's not quite. And you give the information and then they're down the rabbit hole and they're getting your information. And there are people who have really problems. I have a client, her husband was a doctor, a very smart guy, but when he died with his emails and the passwords, and she could not get into the computer. She could not get into their banking accounts. She couldn't get into anything. She was frozen. So it's very disturbing. What was helpful for me is that we made an appointment, and this is what I'm going to point out. We made an appointment with a neurologist. The neurologist, and you can run several things. You do blood tests, you do MRIs, you can do just interviews. And in this interview with this neurologist, he was asking questions of my husband. Typical. You'll even have your doctor doing it now. If you're a certain age, your doctor will say, "Can you draw a clock?" And then put in the numbers of the clock. "Can you make it, 10 minutes after 11? Well, Larry couldn't do that. He couldn't put the numbers in. He couldn't make the circle. It was just, what? You can't do that. And they give them some words. "Can you repeat them back?" Couldn't repeat them. Give them numbers. "Can you repeat the numbers?" Nope, couldn't do that. "Do you recognize animal figures?" Nope. Couldn't tell a rhino, called it a hippo. So when you get that, and then I got a sheet, it said, "Okay, answer these questions." I answered them. I got to the bottom and I went, "Oh my gosh, 21 things. He's not, you're right. He's there. We're further down the road than I thought." Yes.
So, what happens, Pat, when you want these tests to happen, but your partner is very resistant, afraid, whatever, or does that not occur? I'm thinking it would, that somebody would think, "Why are you doing this? I don't want to do this. I don't want anybody to know that I'm forgetting things." Does that happen? And how do you deal with it?
Well, I think your primary care doctor is going to ask you the preliminary questions, and that'll be, "Oh, we might have some problems." And then they can order just as if it were a regular physical. They're ordering the MRIs, they're ordering the blood tests, and then you can find out where they are. We'd had a test back in 2014, and there was little white dots on the brain. On 24 and just this year, I said, "You know what? We need an update. Let's get another scan. Let's find out where you are." Because I saw these telltale signs and I thought, we're down the road further than this. We got him. Doctor analyzed it. Now we have the amyloid plaque and it's significant and it's moving. It's moving. There is a beginning, there's a middle, and there's an end. You want to know where you are. And the sooner you know what's coming, you can prepare not only emotionally, but you can prepare financially.
I bet sometimes the partner who isn't afflicted with this condition can feel guilty that they're thinking something's wrong when maybe they're making it up, maybe they're imagining it, but maybe that's just denial, not wanting to look at something that isn't going to go in a wonderful direction.
I think that's true. In my case, I wasn't denying it. I was just thinking that he was doing better than he really was. I think, well, he's okay. he would give me a snappy answer, kind of clever, a little answer. And I think, well, he's got it. He's okay. And then one day I realized he did not know my daughter. I said, who's this girl? He said, that's Happy. He didn't know her name. And then he didn't recognize the grandchildren's names. He didn't know them. I mean, they're clever. They're clever. They know how to diffuse. So you think that they're on task, but they aren't. And so I'll tell you, when I first got this test and I looked at it, I thought, I was angry. I mean, that's a silly thing, but that's part of grieving because I knew my life as I thought it was going to be was kind of over. And I thought, oh my gosh, I felt like I wanted to kick the slats out of my crib. You know what I mean? I just thought, I didn't sign up for this. I'm really mad about this. And I called a therapist friend. I said, can I talk to you? And she said the next thing, which was really important. She said, well, this is normal, Pat. I said, I feel guilty that I'm mad. And then she said, well, Pat, what are you doing to take care of you? And so that's the really important thing. You have to be able to take care of the caregiver. I had a woman in the other day, her husband had dementia, Alzheimer's, but there's kind of two behaviors. Sometimes they get very aggressive. Sometimes they're violent. Her husband was psychotic. He wanted to kill the cat. She was having to lock doors. She was traumatized for about 9 months until he finally passed. She kept him home. I don't know how she did it. But when I saw her, number one, she looked like she had PTSD. She was not able to deal with her finance. She hadn't paid bills. She hadn't filed her taxes. She hadn't been living. She had just been deer in the headlights and just reliving that experience. Another woman came in, and I will put in a plug. If someone's got VA benefits, if you are a veteran, married to a veteran, VA has programs if you can qualify. And if you qualify, it's a wonderful thing because they can get you some assistance and some help. And her husband qualifies. He's 20 years older than her, can you imagine? And she was just downtrodden. Finally, they got some respite care, and she could have people come in and take care of him. That freed her up to go to the grocery store by herself, which was a treat, and then maybe have an afternoon off where she could meet with friends or family and do something for herself, have a pedicure, go to a movie, just get out of the trauma, that is so mind numbing after a while. And you want to be your best self, but sometimes 24/7 for people who don't have the funds, haven't prepared, don't know where to go, my heart goes out to those women. And mostly it's women taking care of men. Not always. I have men clients taking care of women. And it's hard. It is hard. They lose their lives. They lose a lot in their demeanor. Yes.
When years ago, there used to be a store in Santa Barbara, and it was called Corb's, and they sold Levi's and things. And they had this slogan. They said, you can't do business from an empty wagon. And that is one of my favorite sayings. You can't do business from an empty wagon. And what you're describing, Pat, is so demanding. And when you add in the guilt, a person's going to feel bad that they feel bad about doing all this hard work. There's got to be some filling up of that wagon.
Oh, yeah.
There's got to be something to draw on. And I know from my years ago when I was a therapist, I would see people taking care of someone, a partner, a spouse, and that person had a whole medical history, wasn't as bad as the person they were taking care of. So they were ignoring all their needs and just pouring all this energy into someone else. And as you described that woman, I mean, just the haggard look, because it shows when we're not taking care of ourselves. And we're not doing that partner any favor either, not ultimately. We've got to get practical. That's what I'm hearing. Got to get practical.
Yeah. And I think first get diagnosed, find out what's coming. And the sooner you know that, you can start looking at, what opportunities do we have? Several years ago, I remember a family coming in and they were going to put grandma in a nursing home. And they were asking me to transfer her money to the various family members. And I said, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. Of course, it's against the law. And they look back 5 years to see if you have tried to deplete your assets to make you impoverished so that you become a ward of the state. And it actually kind of made me mad. I said, wait a minute. Are you saying that you want me as a taxpayer to take care of your grandmother? Well, no. No, 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 we're not. But we want to, protect some of those funds. And I said, I'm sorry. She has the funds to provide for her. That's what she's done a good job about. You are saying you want to have grandma's money and you want to put her into an impoverished situation. So we got to get smart about things like Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care. It doesn't. It pays for hospital care, so many days, then they transfer you out to rehab or disability, only so many days. Now maybe they can send you back to the hospital again, and then back to they'll play that game for just a little while. But ultimately, you've got to find either home care, institutionalization, and something that can be affordable. Medi-Cal, I'm not smart about. And I know that there are people who've moved to California because Medi-Cal, which is like Medicaid, other states, Medi-Cal is pretty rich and they do have some provisions for long-term care. So I would probably say if you're in California, read up on Medi-Cal, what it is. Not everybody has the means to look ahead. One of the things that people can do is they can buy long-term care policies. Long-term care policies a long time ago, maybe 20 years ago, aren't the same policies today. You pay in for year. If you didn't use it, you lost it. It just was there, if you didn't use it as home care or long-term care and you died, okay, the proceeds went bye-bye. There's several companies now that you put your money in, you can buy it over a 10-year period if you want. You could buy it up front. You could pay for it every year, but there's automatically a death benefit in there. So if you never use it, it comes back in form of a death benefit to your family. And whatever that amount you have in there, let's say it's $100,000, you get 4 times that amount in home care or long-term care. And that means that could last 4 to 6 years. The average stay is 48 months. And if you get the money in there, it's then growing by a percentage. So if I have 400,000 and I'm 60, by the time I'm 80, that could be 500, 600,000. And you would get so much per day or week for your care. So I think long-term care makes sense. I have a policy. I bought it. I could probably pay for my own care out of other assets. But I wanted to make a statement to my kids. I didn't want to become their baby. I didn't want them changing my depends. I wanted some dignity. And I wanted to be able to hire care, not have my kids do that for me.
That's a gift, Pat. Yeah, that's a gift.
And I have people who don't have children. Then who do you go to? Who's helping you make those decisions? And that's the other thing. Long-term care is important, but sometimes it's just doing a financial plan to say, have I got enough money I can live on? And what if I have these extraneous costs over here that are pretty big? I'm going to say this. There are a lot of people who are, I would say, self-insured. They've got enough money. Sometimes the biggest asset you have is your home. And sometimes if it's in a couple, one will take care of the first one that goes down. The second one that goes down, they sell their home. And that home provides the money for them to be in a facility to be able to taken care of, depending on what level of care they need and what they demand. I looked in for Larry, for example. What I found out is I can get daycare. And that's where I have him today. So they pick him up in the morning. I get to go to work. I can come to work and my life is normal. And I get to do this fun thing with you. And at 3 o'clock, my carriage turns into a pumpkin, and I've got to get home, hit the door open, accept him for the evening, and I can work a little bit or make some phone calls or do whatever. But then my day goes on, and I'm in charge. Is it reasonable? Oh no, it's a lot of money because they charge to pick him up, they charge to deliver him, and typically it's like $92 a day. Now, if you're a vet or if you've got Alzheimer's, there's some state stuff. So the price could come down to say maybe $50 a day. Okay. But there's daycare. There's also, you know, situations where you can have groups come in and they can be there for 6 hours. Typically, they're charging $42 to $46 an hour for skilled help. And then, of course, there's institutionalization. And I've seen it anywhere from 6,000 a month to 10,000 a month, depending on how much more care they need. And I even had a client that was paying $23,000 a month because it was round the clock critical care. How long did that last? Well, she was 104 when she died. So it went on for a very, very long time. So you have to plan to have money or plan for that. You just can't be blindsided into not realizing that you need something, some kind of care.
So I'm just going to reiterate here again, Pat, because I'm hearing this so strongly that we tend to back away from something that isn't going to go the way we want it to go. It's information we don't want to face. I mean, I worked in the field of alcoholism. Denial is what it's all about.
Big.
Just don't look at it. Pretend it's not there. When you see the signs, diminish them. Look for the signs, just as you said with your husband. You look for the signs that there's nothing wrong. Look, he can do this. He can do that. We've got to face it, because in the long run, that's going to make it so much easier for us. And when you described making an ordinary doctor's appointment with the practical doctor that you go see, not the specialist, and then that doctor can refer, and it's not on the spouse. It's
Exactly.
not like we're doing this accusatory thing of you can't remember anything and you need to go here. It's just a medical referral, and you get more information. And I'm assuming there are people who know how to advise the partners who are having this burden of care. So yeah, that's where we start, is
Exactly.
being honest with ourselves and looking at the situation clearly, getting the information, getting the diagnosis. And maybe sometimes that isn't the diagnosis, and you can go, oh, that's not the problem. It's something else. And then whatever that is. But yeah, that seems so critical to me. You start where you start.
Yeah, driving. When do they quit driving? When do you take the liability of someone getting behind the car? You've driven with them and you're going, you're a little scary. At what point? That's like cutting their legs off, to say they're not going to have a car. But sometimes medically, you go to the doctor and you say, this is what I'm observing. And the doctor will say, I'll take care of that. And what they do is notify the DMV that they can't renew their license. You're not the bad guy. You didn't do it. The doctor did it. Okay. Another thing that I want to point out, which was just shocking to me, some people don't have trust, but a trust allows you to have a successor trustee. And sometimes if you're failing to make good decisions, you can't balance your checkbook. You're starting to forget to pay a bill, or you pay it twice, or, I mean, just incidental, it only comes up once, whatever. But if it's an ongoing problem, sometimes I have said to women, let's get your daughter or your successor trustee on your account with you as a co-trustee, and either one of your signatures will work, but now you've got a backup. In fact, we always take information and we say, who is the person we should contact? And I'm thinking, who do I contact when you're starting to get a little funny on me and you're not tracking, or you're calling me for the same information over and over and over and over and over, and you get on that little rabbit wheel and you can't get off it because it's not making sense to you. So sometimes you can do that. Trust, successors follow you, but sometimes you want a co-trustee to make sure you're not padding an envelope and sending money out to every charity in the world. The other thing I ran into is qualified money, like IRAs, okay, don't work with trustees. They work with a power of attorney. So a power of attorney is important for things like IRAs, excuse me, and sometimes bank accounts, okay? Will need a power of attorney in order for somebody to be able to write your checks. I mean, there's various things you can do. A power of attorney, there's two types. One's for medical, and you need that if you're the caregiver. And you also need a power of attorney for finance. They're two separate deals. We don't liberally give out powers of attorney for finance easily because it's kind of a license to steal. If somebody were unethical, they could be, absconding with your money. So you want somebody who's trusted, somebody that you can rely upon. And if you don't have anybody like that, sometimes you end up going to trust companies and they become your financial powers of attorney. I ran into the power of attorney when I was just doing a simple thing, just a simple little thing. I wanted a tax return information for my husband's pension. It came, they told me it was going to be on an email. Well, I had canceled his email. So I called him and I said, I need a paper copy. They said, is he there? I said, yes. So I tried to get him to answer the question of his last four numbers of his Social Security. He got all confused and I said, no, Larry, your last four numbers of your Social Security. She said, you're coaching him. I can't talk to you. You need to send me a power of attorney. And then once we receive it, then you can call in and you can get the information. So before you get to the point that you're just down the rabbit hole and, adrift, just think what it applies to. Tax returns, even things like utility bills. The utility bills are oftentimes in your husband's and your names, but it's their Social Security number. So guess what? They won't take instructions from you. Credit cards, they won't take instructions from you. It's the most frustrating thing that I think I had ever been through. I said to the lady that was helping me, I said, I know I must sound like I ride a broom, but I'm telling you, this is the most frustrating thing. And it goes over and over. And every day I turn another direction. And so now I have all these powers of attorney and I just send them out and I get my name on everything and it's fine. But doing it is just frustrating.
And folks, this is Pat Meidell. I mean, she is an expert in this area.
Yeah.
So this thing can catch you and bite you no matter who you are.
Yeah.
It'll surprise you. And the idea is to stay ahead of it. And that means we've got to deal with the denial. We've got to deal with things that may not be something we want to look at. We've got to look at them anyway, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sooner versus later. The other thing too, and this is sort of funny, but a few years ago, do you remember when Groucho Marx had in-home care? Remember, he married his nurse. He was in his 90s, something like that. And he married his nurse, and then he gave his whole estate to her. Well, obviously, when he died, it was contested and they got the money back as a family. But not too funny. I had a client. Well, she wanted to become a client, but she had been a gal who came to town and she would only take men who did not have a family and she wanted to work nights for them. And that's what she did. And so she worked nights for them. And lo and behold, she married this old guy. Well, then she hired male nurses to stay the night and around the day. And she was off living vicariously through videos and cell phone. Honey, here I am at whatever, and see how I'm dressed. And he would be enjoying vicariously her expenditure of his money as she traveled and did all these wonderful things. I just couldn't believe it. When I realized what she was up to, I said, I'm sorry, I cannot, in good ethics, work for you as an advisor. So be careful who you bring into your home too. As you're looking for home care, there are some very legitimate companies. In fact, we have a group here in town called Dignity Health. They come in, help do assessments to say how much care do they really need? What could they do on their own? So you're not leaving them for falling or whatever. But they're bonded, they're people that are licensed. And even with that, you're probably going to miss a couple of things, you know. You can have things stolen. So just be aware of that. But you also want to make sure that they're not frauds, that they're not there to do something fraudulent like take your credit card and rack up a lot of, expenses. So in today's world, you can't be too smart, too cautious, but you can be out of step with reality, and not being aware puts you behind the eight ball. You're behind and then you're running to try to catch up. And if you know what's coming, you can emotionally help yourself. I'm so much better than I was 2 months ago. 2 months ago, I was feeling pretty party, and I'm not liking the way things going. I'm seeing this music therapy that my husband's getting. He's more articulate. He's up in the morning. He's actually happy. He's a happy Alzheimer's. Not everybody gets that. He's more childlike. In fact, he's very sweet. And he'll say, I really love you. And he probably hasn't said that for a number of years. So I'm kind of grateful. Oh, you do? Oh, that's very sweet. That's him. But watch for the anger, watch the physical stuff, and don't be afraid. It's not you. They're not that's not the person you knew. It's changing them. And when you see the mood changes and you see the mentality going into a different direction, get the help. Open your mouth. Do not be traumatized.
That's another aspect of denial. When we take the blame for something that's going on, which we're very willing to do, it's because maybe we haven't thought this through, but it's because we're thinking, if it's my fault, I can change what I'm doing and the problem will go away.
Oh, yeah. Make him happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not the situation. That's not the condition. So again, we have to be practical. We have to be honest and look at what's going on.
And there are groups too that you can join. I haven't done that, but I know that there's Alzheimer's groups. And there are certain things that are helpful. There are diets, there's medication. Nothing cures it. Okay. You have to be careful the medication that they're giving, that the side effects are not worse than the disease. So for Larry, it was causing instability, walking, dizziness. We don't need this. I said to the doctor, I don't think we're going to do this. There's more risk. She said, you're right. These are oftentimes placebos where people think that it's maybe, haltering the progression. But no, that's not really what happens, But you can work. Diet has a lot to do with it. Processed foods, they're saying. In fact, what's interesting to me is that how many young people now are getting Alzheimer's. That's frightening. You don't have to be 65 and older. We're seeing it, and there may be something about processed foods, what we're eating, consuming. Maybe, there's something there, and maybe we'll figure it out eventually. But I think you can't be too careful about garbage in and garbage out. So
that old saying, we are what we eat.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it behooves us to be careful. Pat, I think we're out of time today.
Hey, and I just checked my notes, and guess what? I got through it.
Have we covered everything?
Yeah,
all right.
We did.
That's what we want to do. I cannot thank you enough. This isn't
welcome.
the most cheerful topic, but it is so vital, so important, so necessary to look at. So thank you for your expertise.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your personal experience. Thank you for the stories. And thanks to all of you who joined us today. We'll see you next time, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye for now. Sensationally Silver, A State of Mind, is sponsored by Sensationally Silver, a complete hair care product line created especially for people with hair like ours, naturally gray and white hair. Sensationally Silver products can be found exclusively at sensationallysilver.com.
Sensationally silver, because you are.